Good evening. I would like to call to order our meeting for Monday, October 2nd, 2023 for the Wilson School Board. Roll call, please.
Mr. Case?
Here.
Mr. Hart?
Here.
Mrs. Casper?
Here.
Dr. Kennedy?
Here.
Mr. Martin?
Here.
Mr. McCray?
Here.
Mr. Negrini?
Here.
Mr. Schneider?
Here.
Mrs. Cocker?
Here.
9 present, 0 absent.
Please stand for the pledge to the flag. Okay, first this evening, we have communications from the Wilson High School Internship Program with Mrs. Stephanie Wagner.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? Am I good? All right. My name is Stephanie Wagner. I am one of the internship coordinators at the high school. Jake Peterson and I work together to oversee and place high school juniors and seniors in work-based learning experiences. Our internship program is booming. This year, we have over 200 students placed in internships, and at this point, students have logged 5,700 hours. I think it's fair to say we have the largest internship program in the county. These experiences are both on and off campus, paid and unpaid, full year and semester long. Students are in law firms, physical therapy offices, dental offices, counseling services, IT, retail, restaurants, engineering, real estate, veterinary clinics, mortuary science, insurance, finance, medical, aeronautical, sports management, marketing, public relations, human resources, EMT services, education, journalism, media production, social media, nutrition, politics, environmental, community outreach, electrical, welding, and construction, and I'm sure I missed some. We often start working with the students in the spring of the school year prior to their internship experience to get them set up. It takes time to complete the necessary steps and paperwork required by the state. Securing these experiences is a collaborative effort between the students, Jake and I, and the business community. Additionally, the Berks Business Education Coalition has been a great resource and help in bridging the gap between the education and business world. During internships, students learn career-specific language, how to network, interns feel the feels, see the pace, experience the pressure, work with all kinds of people, experience a professional environment, and learn things they didn't even know to ask about. They find out if the reality of the experience matches up with their expectations and determine if they are on the right path. Tonight I have a write-up from a student who couldn't be here tonight about his experiences, and I also have a guest here tonight, Gavin Sarava, who will be speaking about his experiences after I read a statement from Chase Templeton. His statement goes, "Hello, my name is Chase Templeton. I'm a senior here at Wilson. Over the past 3 years, I have been an intern with the internship program. I first started in the athletic training room with Kiernan Malagrana and Kyle Moyer in my sophomore year, after volunteering my time with them in my freshman year. I continued this internship experience into the first semester of my junior year. The second internship that I was fortunate enough to obtain was with the Western Berks Ambulance Association. I rode on the ambulance and was exposed to a wide variety of emergency calls within Berks County, the most memorable being on March 24th with the explosion of the R.M. Palmer Chocolate Factory in West Reading. My ambulance was one of the first emergency responders on the scene. This internship also inspired me to take an EMT class, which I'm currently attending at Elko High School, which is where he is tonight, and will hopefully be a nationally registered emergency medical technician by mid-April. Currently, I am interning with Dr. Gary Canner at Berkshire Orthopedics and act as an advisor to the current Wilson Sports Medicine interns. From not knowing what the internship program was as a freshman to now being an advocate for future interns, I have found the internship program to be a valuable experience and tool for upperclassmen who either want reassurance about their future plans or who are still searching for the right fit for them. Thank you, Chase Templeton. I'd like to introduce you to Gavin Saravo to talk to you a little bit about his internship experience.
Hello. Hello, members of the Wilson School District School Board and Wilson families. My name is Gavin Saravo, and I'm a 12th grader enrolled in the Honors Internship Program here at Wilson. Today, I want to share with you the experiences and opportunities that I have been able to have because of this program. This year, I have the opportunity to intern with Mr. Matt Wolf at RE/MAX Real Estate, and I've gotten an inside look at the day-to-day activities that a real estate agent might encounter. Each day, I get to dive deeper into the world of real estate, meet new people, and expand my knowledge in this industry. One of my favorite aspects of my internship is the ability to go visit properties because it gives me the opportunity to see all different types of houses and learn about the market values. In just a few short weeks, I've been able to see modern houses and houses built in the early 1900s. Through seeing all different types of homes, it has given me a better understanding of what makes a home a house and how crucial it is to find the right home for buyers. Another key aspect of my internship is researching properties. While it is not the most fun task that I do, it is very crucial in the real estate field. This task has sharpened my analytical skills and has taught me the value of thorough investigation. Looking at market trends, analyzing property history, and looking at the location of a property all help me to find how to best market a property. Additionally, attending settlements has been an eye-opening experience and has given me a look into something that I hope to be a part of in the future. Witnessing the culmination of negotiations, the signing of legal documents, and the happiness that new homeowners have all equate to a really cool experience to be a part of. Settlements have shown me the significance of collaboration, attention to detail, and following a set process. Lastly, the people that you meet in this industry are really a highlight. My coolest meet and greet experience so far was getting to be able to meet the mayor of Reading, Eddie Moran. The mayor was needed to sign some documents, and after he was done, he extended an invitation to me and my other Wilson colleague, Alexa Kairos, to come tour his office and meet with him. This is just one example of the many networking opportunities in this industry. As a college-bound senior interested in studying finance and investment in my next chapter, I wanted to gain related business experience through the Honors Internship Program. Last year, I interned in the accounting department at Riverfront Credit Union and was excited to learn another aspect of the business world this year. My internship with Mr. Wolf and RE/MAX so far has been an incredible experience, and I would not have known that I had such a deep interest in this industry if I did not take part in the Wilson Internship Program. I'm learning new skills every day about the real estate industry and the business world and life in general, and would urge other students to embrace the opportunity to take part in this program. It can be a great stepping stone to finding a career path that you truly love. Thank you for your time. Have a good night.
I love my kids. All right. So I just want to thank you for your time, letting us celebrate all of the things that we've done with our internship program, and let you guys know that if anyone listening or anyone in the room wants to learn more about the program, you can contact me. My information or Jake Peterson's information is on the high school website. So thank you, and have a good evening.
Thank you, Mrs. Wagner. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Commissioner Greenie?
Sorry,
Sorry.
go ahead.
No, I just wanted to comment, I'm not to take away from my BCTC report, but Matt Wolf attended our dinner at our last BCTC meeting and actually talked about some of the homes that the students get to go into, dating back to like the 1900s and, the odd buildings that students have to go into and really learn a little bit of the history of the area in terms of real estate. So it was just, I don't want to take away from my other report, but it's just interesting to make that connection now to the students who are actually doing the work for him. So it's just really great to hear the experiences and the vast array of experiences that you get with your internships. So thank you.
This past weekend was my Wilson reunion, and many of my former classmates came back from outside the area, as far away as California and South Carolina, and they had the opportunity to come take a tour of the high school on Friday to see how things have changed over the last, I won't say how many years, but it's been a while. But one of the things that stood out when speaking with some of my former classmates was this particular program. Is this unique to the area? What did it take to get it started? And I believe many of those former classmates intend on going back to their local schools to inquire about doing something that we're doing here. So I thought that was worthy of sharing, and it made a lot of Wilson grads proud of what we're doing here currently. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Case?
Oh, sure. Thanks for anticipating that. Gavin, thank you for sharing well-spoken, another quality of the internship program, that you learn to speak and build relationships with adults. I just want to share, my son's in the program as well, and typically when you ask a kid coming home from school, how was your day? It's good. The internship has provided this whole expansion of conversation about how someone's day went, because very excited about talking about it. It's a wonderful program, so thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Kennedy?
Yeah, I just want to chime in and say thank you to Mrs. Wagner and Mr. Peterson. Cooper's been lucky enough to do an internship since he was a sophomore as well. And as much as he doesn't want to admit it, he is definitely going to be an education major when he goes to college. The apple apparently didn't fall that far from the tree. And he has been able to see special education classrooms at the high school level, at the middle school level, and this year at the grade school level. So he gets to be at Whitfield, where I used to teach. And it's the same thing. It's his favorite part of the day. Nothing against his other teachers are wonderful, but he comes home and I know about every kid in the class, and he's just so excited to be able to go on field trips. And counting the hours that he has his internship, he will have more hours in his internship than one of our student teachers will. And to be able to go and to say that as a 17-year-old kid is just, it's really unbelievable. So again, thank you. Thank you to everyone that started this, and I'm just super proud to see where else we can take it.
Thank you for your comments. Any other comments or questions from the board? Dr. Trickett, absolutely.
Obviously echoing everything that's been said, but my last piece is just to the staff, specifically to Mr. Peterson and Mrs. Wagner and all the people before them. This was a perfect example of how staff in this school came to administration with an idea and a plan, and was given, I believe, hopefully I'm not speaking out of turn here, but was given the ability to pursue this dream, and them pretty much alone, with the support of our team up here, the board, and allocating resources, have built this program into what it is today. Completely run, led, organized, and coordinated by teachers in the high school. It's just such a transformational experience, as Gavin discussed, and I'm just very thankful that Steph is here tonight representing all of her colleagues that have worked hard to build this program.
Thank you, and thank you, Mrs. Wagner. We appreciate all of the effort that you and Mr. Peterson put in to offer these opportunities for our students before they even leave our grounds, and they move on to whatever their next step is. So we appreciate it. Thank you. Ms. Moravich, we do have public participation. I'm sorry, we don't have public participation on agenda items.
I'll
Wait till the end. Thank you. Executive session. The board met in executive session prior to tonight's meeting to discuss personnel and litigation. So apologies for the delayed start. We had more on our agenda for executive session than we usually do. Approval of minutes, 2.1, request to approve the minutes of the school board meeting held on September 18th, 2023. Looking for a motion for 2.1.
So moved.
Mr. Martin, thank you. Do we have a second?
Schneider, second.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Payment of bills, Mr. Negrini?
Motion to approve the payment of bills from the general fund in the amount of $1,775,948.95 as attached.
Thank you, Mr. Negrini. We have a motion for 3.1. Do we have a second?
McCray.
Mr. McCray, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Superintendent's report, Dr. Trickett.
Thank you, President Cocker. I present the superintendent's report, including the personnel and program recommendations below.
Thank you, Dr. Trickett. Looking for a motion to approve superintendent's items 4.1 through 4.7 as presented.
So
Dr.
moved.
Mr. Martin, thank you. Dr. Kennedy, second. Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
On to field trips, 5.1. Request permission to approve the high school competition cheer team traveling to Orlando, Florida on February 7th through 12th, 2024, pending that they qualify. Cost to the school district is one substitute teacher for 3 days, 3 days out of school for students. Request permission to approve the high school baseball team traveling to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina on March 14th through the 18th, 2024. Cost of the district is 2 substitute teachers for 3 days, 3 days out of school for students. And request permission to approve the high school softball team traveling to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina on March 14th through the 18th, 2024. Cost of the district is 1 substitute teacher for 3 days, also 3 days out of school for students. Looking for a motion for 5.1.
Schneider, so moved.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Do we have a second?
Case?
Oh, Mr. Martin beat you.
Mr. Martin.
Mr. Martin, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, this is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Under Human Resources, 6.1, request approval to authorize the superintendent to make employment commitments to qualified applicants for the purpose of filling vacancies that occur after the October 2nd, 2023 board meeting, with action to be ratified by the school board at the next official meeting. And 6.2, request approval of the extracurricular, non-athletic extracurricular, and co-curricular compensation plans as attached. Looking for a motion for human resource, motion to approve human resources items 6.1 and 6.2.
Hart, so moved.
Mr. Hart, thank you. Do we have a second?
Casper.
Mrs. Casper, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under Student Services, 7.1, request approval to renew a service agreement with the Governor Mifflin School District to provide special education services to Governor Mifflin students attending the Wilson School District during the 2023-24 school year, to be invoiced monthly for services provided at the agreed-upon hourly rates as attached. 7.2, request permission to approve the adoption of a settlement agreement and release to establish an education fund to be held and managed by the district in the amount of $57,000 for legitimate educational expenses, inclusive of attorney fees, to settle and comprise all claims raised by the parents of a high school student. Looking for a motion to approve student services items 7.1 and 7.2.
Can we peel off just and do them separately, 7.1 and 7.2, please?
Sure, absolutely. So looking for a motion to approve 7.1.
So moved.
Mr. Martin, thank you. Do we have a second? Dr. Kennedy, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please, on 7.1.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
For 7.2, looking for a motion.
Schneider, so moved.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Do we have a second?
Negrini, second.
Mr. Negrini, thank you. Discussion.
I want to peel this off separately only because at some point, there needs to be 5 board members that are going to step up at some point, across America, whether it's Wilson, Berks County, across the country, school districts, continue to settle these cases, and at some point, you have to fight, because if and go to court and win the battle, it's the easy way to do it's too easy to continue to settle. The more we settle, the more we're going to have these continued cases, So it's more of a statement. I think at some point you have to push back and start going the long distance. It may cost you a little bit in the long run if you lose a case, but, we need to just not settle at some point.
Okay, thank you for your comments, Mr. Case. Mr. Martin?
Yes, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but about 6, 7 years ago, we went through a program to reorganize and beef up our situations that would handle these. And it appears that we're not really there yet, and because obviously we've done something wrong, that the council has stated that we need to pay this or agree to this. But I think I know we have new people on staff that hopefully address this, but we've been kicking this around for some time now, and we still don't seem to be where we should be.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Other comments? Mr. Schneider?
I was wondering, Dr. Trickett, if you or Dr. Hoffa could discuss what, the criteria are for us to decide whether or not to settle.
Sure, I'll defer to Dr. Hoffer. Obviously, there's a lot that we can't disclose, but he can talk about the process used.
Going case by case to get into the details in an open forum. Yeah, I mean, we do a pretty deep dive analysis on each of these cases to see where our potential liabilities are, and then work really hard with our special education attorneys to determine, when there are cases that we can take to fight, and when we identify that there may be a problem here or there that is just going to be a loser for us. The difficulty is when the district takes a case to due process, any small error or any misstep results in a complete loss, which can result in attorneys or in the administrative hearing officer awarding compensation over and above what we may negotiate here. So that has to really factor into our decision about whether or not to take a case forward. It has to be absolutely airtight for us to even have a hope of prevailing in a lot of these hearings. And the percentage of cases when a district goes to hearing where the district actually prevails is very, very small. So it's been a difficult road. It's something that we are, as I mentioned, we're working through with our attorneys to identify, when these cases do come forward, identifying which ones we feel like we have a strong case and can fight, and do have a plan to do that.
Thank you, Dr. Hoffert. Okay, we have a motion and a second on 7.2. Roll call, please.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
No.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
No,
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
7 yes, 2 no.
Under Technology and Media, 8.1, request approval of a new 60-month lease agreement for 13 Ricoh multifunction copiers from Stratix Systems in Wyomissing to replace expiring leases at a total lease cost of $1,025 per month as attached. Looking for a motion for 8.1.
So moved, McCray.
Mr. McCray, thank you. Do we have a second?
Schneider.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
yes,
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under Finance, request approval of the budget transfers dated June 30th, 2023, as attached. Looking for a motion for 9.1.
So moved.
Mr. Negrini, thank you. Do we have a second?
Case?
Mr. Case, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
yes,
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under Transportation, 10.1, request approval to issue a request for bid for 3 used or 3 new 9-passenger school vans. Looking for a motion for 10.1.
So moved, Case.
Mr. Case, thank you. Do we have a second?
Casper.
Mrs. Casper, thank you. Any discussion? Mr. Martin?
Yes, on the 3 used ones, what's the criteria for the 3 used ones? Is it 2 years old, 3 years old? What's the criteria?
I'd like to bring up Mr. Williams to talk a little bit about that criteria, but also to explain why this agenda item is coming before the board in October.
Evening. So the criteria, the request is to issue a request for bid to solicit for 3 used vans. The criteria, we have to be careful. We can't say it has to be a Ford, it has to be a 2020 or newer. So we'll receive, the bids, and then we'll determine whether they meet the criteria we need. So there's no preset on that. There's a criteria on the wheelbase, there's a criteria on the number of passengers, in addition to the driver. But as far as year, mileage, make, model, we can't set that criteria because it would get too close to having a predetermined path. Now, talking about what created this request, over the past 2 years, it's become more and more difficult to secure 9-passenger vans, which we use heavily for our out-of-district students, our students covered by McKinney-Vento, some of our special needs students with very specialized transportation needs. In the past 12 months, we've been told, so years ago, Chevy pulled out of the market, 9-passenger school vehicles. Dodge is pulling out of the market. Ford, which was the last kind of hope for all the school districts, and many school districts in Pennsylvania rely on these 9-passenger vans. Ford has indicated they're no longer going to produce them either due to emissions and the federal mandate of electric. We actually have 2 vans that were approved last year in April, and we're being told that it's probably slim to none that we're going to see those vans because Ford is not making them. So an opportunity came up that we found out there were a couple, 3 used vehicles out there. We don't know if there are more, and that's why going to this RFB will help us make the best decision for the district and our students and be fiscally prudent at the same time.
Is there a difference between a 9-passenger regular van and a 9-passenger school van?
There is.
Okay.
Yeah, so a 9-passenger school van has to be certified. It has to have extra reinforcement in the event of a crash. So there, at one time, people would take a 15-passenger cargo van, and then they'd upfit it with 9 seats. But the dealers are being told that no additional, I think it's an MOA, will be issued. So it's a manufacturer certificate, basically, that you get when it comes in as a 15-passenger cargo van with no seats, except for the driver and passenger. Some time ago, they used to issue a second one, but now they're being told they will not issue a second one to add that. So,
Has the gap closed if we consider grants for electric vehicles, have we bridged that gap at all, cost-wise, with regard to what you can buy with an electric?
so there's still lots of money available. So no, that's still there. The funding. Now, they have kind of made it tighter. They're looking to give a majority of the current funding to disadvantaged schools, inner city, tribal nations. Now, there is some money available for a Wilson S type school district, but they're earmarking a majority of the $500 million this year towards those other educational institutions. Now, was your question more on, are we getting closer to being able to go electric?
Part of it, yeah, sure.
Okay. So I actually was in Anaheim last year at a conference on electrification. Depends who you talk to if we're closer or not. there's a lot of controversy right now, whether it's right or wrong, on whether electric is greener because of what it takes to produce electric battery vehicles, to produce the electric batteries. But we're still in the same position, especially for a larger bus, that our climate, our terrain, these batteries are still $70,000 a pop when they go bad in 6 years. The vehicle is still $380,000 to purchase. Now, I'm talking a big bus. I did just see an ad in one of the trade magazines that there's it's an upfitter upfitting electric vans for 9-passenger. So it's on my desk. I have to give them a call and see what it's about, because that's news to me. But we would still then have the infrastructure issue. And when we looked at that for all of our buses, that was 1.5 million. Now, if we're talking 15 vans, it would obviously be less than that, but there still is the electrification infrastructure issue that we can get through, but we just have to look.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Okay, so 10.1, Mrs. Burkholder, we have a first and we have a motion and a second.
That's correct.
Okay, just making sure. I don't want to move forward without, we're a little sidetracked there. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under Food Cafeteria, 11.1, request approval of a contract with Carol H. Gilbert Consulting Services to provide administrative coverage of the food services director job duties at a rate of $140 per hour or $700 per day, beginning on November 7th, 2023 through June 30th, 2024, as presented. Looking for a motion for 11.1.
So moved, Negrini.
Mr. Negrini, thank you. Do we have a second?
Second. Case.
Thank you, Mr. Case. Any discussion? Mr. Negrini?
Just briefly, I know we had used Ms. Gilbert's services prior to bringing on Ms. Ginn. They provide excellent quality, and that's why I believe the recommendation is being made to utilize their services again while Ms. Ginn is out on maternity leave. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Negrini. Any other discussion? Okay. Roll call, please.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
That brings us to committee reports. BCTC and Student Services, Mrs. Casper.
Yes, thank you, President Cocker. For BCTC, we met on September 27th at the West Campus. And of course, we started off with a splendid meal prepared by our culinary students from the West Campus with a fall theme. So of course, there was lots of pumpkin spice and root veggies, so it was yummy. Then we had the pleasure of touring the electrical occupations facilities at the West Campus, which is part of their construction program and contributes to the student-built home. This program focuses on 3 areas of wiring. I learned a lot about electrical occupations. Residential, commercial, and industrial. I was super impressed with the real-world capabilities offered to our students in this program, including a replica of an entire house inside the facility, where then each student is assigned a panel simulating like a fuse box, which kind of gives me nightmares. And, you know, when I pop a fuse and I have to go down there, I never know what to do. So it was kind of like scary with all these boxes down there to kind of tour through. So it was interesting that our students are able to get not only real-world experience toward their career, but that they can apply to their own personal lives as well. So the one area that I thought was really impressive was an outdoor replica of industrial power lines, where students get real-world experience with things like wiring safety. And these were actually donated by the Borough of Kutztown And it was noted that the BCTC is the only CTC in Pennsylvania with these simulating capabilities. So our students are walking away with a highly specialized credential and experience. So we later recognized Wilson's Matt Wolf, who was mentioned earlier today, and we recognized him with a certificate for his support as the realtor for the student-built home. And Matt has graciously offered each time, year after year, to support the sale of the home. So thank you again, Matt, for your service and for always supporting the BCTC endeavors. Also recognizing 3 of our Wilson students who were placed last month at the FFA Ole Fair competition. 10th grader Elizabeth Fortna placed first for their arrangement of roses in the horticulture category. And 12th graders Ashley Mengel and Avery Smith both placed second in horticulture for their centerpiece and arrangement of roses. So congratulations to those students. Just some announcements. Coming up soon are the BCTC open houses where parents and their students can tour some of the facilities and get to know the programs a little bit better. On November 1st at the East Campus and on November 8th at the West Campus, both beginning at 5. More details can be found on the BCTC website. That's my report for BCTC. Our next meeting is October 25th at the East Campus. Our student services, we have not met since our last board meeting, and our next meeting is November 1st.
Thank you, Mrs. Casper. BCIU and Curriculum Committee, Dr. Kennedy.
Thank you, and I'd like to thank Mr. Schneider for lending me his readers because I left them and my sweater in the car. Okay, for the BCIU, just to piggyback on what Mrs. Casper said, the BCTC has reached an agreement with the BCIU to provide the meals for the Head Start program. So I thought that was an interesting connection. The BCIU held its back-to-school resource fair aimed to equip students with the tools they need for a successful school year while fostering a sense of community. This event brought together local businesses and community groups to provide free school supplies, haircuts, activities, grocery items, and other resources. The BCIU had their first COLA meeting, that's the Committee on Legislative Action meeting, on Tuesday, September 12th. 50 school leaders, including Dr. Trickett, participated. They had Dr. Sherry Smith, the Executive Director of the Pennsylvania Association of School Administrators, speak, and she shared her insight and perspective on the impact of education related to legislation at the state level. PASA advocacy priorities for the school year include things like, at the state level, I lost the local level. Nope. At the state level, safety, school safety and security, a mental health fund granting, basic education funding, special education funding, state mandates, charter and cyber school reform. At the federal level, they are advocating for special education, Parents' Bill of Rights, advocating against vouchers and school choice, technology, Medicaid services, and on their watch list is the alternative to school property tax and school choice lifeline scholarships, and of course, everyone is watching the fair funding lawsuit. And those are my notes from the BCIU meeting. Our curriculum committee met last Wednesday. And at the elementary level, monthly literacy cohorts support the professional learning of primary teachers. Last year, first grade teachers participated in this opportunity, and this year, kindergarten and second grade are engaged in this model. All kindergarten teachers have been trained in a mindfulness program to help students learn self-regulation skills. All of our pre-K counts classrooms are open. That's 4 in Berkshire Heights and 1 in Cornwall Terrace. Some middle-level updates include middle-level teachers are participating in some professional learning with English and reading diving into units of study, and the teachers are looking forward to bringing the trainer back again for additional support. Wilson West had a soggy 3 days of camp last week, very soggy. And Lucky Southern got to go today, tomorrow, and Wednesday, and what a beautiful day they had. They might be a little salty over there at West right now. Overall, for both schools, 400 sixth grade students went to camp. And this year was new because the entire West went together and the entire Southern went together, when typically it's red team goes, then white team goes. So that must have been a lot. They had high school student counselor volunteers. There were over 20 adults per building that went. They had 10 learning stations, meals, campfires, evening programs, and student recreation time. And we're hoping to bring, after Southern goes, some students and some counselors back here to talk to us about their experiences at a board meeting. We talked a little about got information on the evening academy that we're running here at the high school, and we're talking about piloting a standards-based report card for that program, which hopefully will give us a basis for discussing our overall high school report cards. We've had some professional learning day updates. On Friday, September 5th, the teachers heard a legal presentation about IEPs, 504s, and ALICE training. And upcoming on Monday, October 9th, there'll be a professional learning day. That's a county-wide in-service day. In the elementary teachers will hear about zones of regulation, and they'll have grade level meetings. At the secondary level, they'll hear about restorative mindset and they'll have department meetings. Some virtual academy updates. There are 78 students taking over 200 courses, 56 different classes from the Brandywine Virtual Academy, and they are who provide some of our courses. And then there's also 324 students taking 11 different classes in our Schoology, which is our in-house program that our Wilson teachers develop and teach. And our goal for the next school year is to add at least 10 to 15 more in-house courses. And then we had an executive session at the end. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kennedy. Berks EIT, Mrs. Schlossman.
Good evening. The Berks Tax Collection Committee met on Thursday, September 28th. We reviewed the collections and distributions for the 9 months ended compared to the prior year. And again, we have good news. We had an additional $4 million collected over the prior year, or 4%. There is an adjustment running through this current year from the prior year, so if you wanted to really compare apples to apples, it's more like a $7 million change or a 6% increase, so that's good for the schools and municipalities in our community. We did talk about the Business Privilege Program update, so we have Attorney Jennifer Brown, who is working with the Bureau and the municipalities and school districts that have their business privilege tax collected by the Berks EIT. She's working on having their regulations and collection procedures to be consistent across the organization so that we can enhance that collection program and get those tax dollars distributed. We do have the delinquent earned income tax prosecution that is happening for delinquent employers who have not remitted the earned income tax withholdings of their employees. We have over a dozen that we are working with, and we have collected half of those delinquent tax dollars, so those monies will be distributed as appropriate. Our next meeting is December 14th, in which we will be approving the 2024 calendar year budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Schlossman. Extracurricular Committee, we have not met since our last meeting, but we have a scheduled meeting next Monday, the 9th, at noon in the admin building. Facilities Committee, Mr. Case.
Thank you. We haven't met either. The next meeting is October 9th, same day, 4:30 PM at the operations building. Yes, thanks.
Thank you. Finance Committee, Mr. Negrini.
Thank you. We met earlier today at 4:30, discussed a few items. First, we heard from food services. Participation for both breakfast and lunch is up this year compared to last year. However, in the first month, we have already accumulated $7,000 in negative balances. And it was pointed out that we currently have 43% of our student population qualifies for free or reduced lunches. And it seems that we're trending towards 50% perhaps in the next 2 to 3 years. And obviously, I'll point that out as how it contrasts to some of the things that we're seeing on a local revenue level. But that's what we heard about in Wilson Food Services. Bless you. The 24-25 Act 1 index came out. The Act 1 base index and adjusted index this week. The base 5.3%, which calculates for Wilson to 1.56 mils. And the adjusted index for Wilson is 6.6%, which calculates to 1.946 mils. The budget calendar for the 24-25 year, the proposed preliminary budget or the opt-out resolution will need to be decided upon on November 20th, December 4th, or December 18th, based upon some very interesting developments with when the primaries may or may not take place in the spring. However, it is the Finance Committee's recommendation at our next meeting to have the opt-out resolution that we will not seek to increase beyond the adjusted index of 6.6%. That would mean that the proposed final budget would have to be passed by May 6, 2024, and the final budget passed June 17, 2024. We reviewed the fiscal year 22-23. The final audit is still ongoing, but what we could share at this point is that we're projected to land at around $7 million in the general fund excess prior to the budgeted $1.5 million transfer to capital reserve, which is part of the Phase 2 enrollment growth, leaving in excess of $5.5 million for determination of additional capital reserve transfers, additional commitments to the general fund, or unassigned fund balance infusion. We ended the year with $10.7 million in capital reserves, with the budgeted capital reserve transfer of $1.5 million will result in $12.2 million. There is a recommendation of another $2.5 million to be placed in capital reserves, which will add on another year to our reserves. We spend about $2.5 million in the capital reserves each year. That would put us at 6 years of funding for capital reserve projects. This is also being done in an effort to maintain our AA bond rating, as there is the potential of issuing perhaps more debt in the near future to be decided by the board at a later date. If we retain of that excess $0.9 million into the unassigned fund balance, that would allow the district to maintain the goal of 5% of the subsequent year's budgeted expenditures for the next 5 years. We discussed year-to-date financials. It appears as if the general fund food services, and early learning childcare funds all seem to be in line with last year's numbers, with the exception that there has already been an increase in local revenues, which is certainly a good sign. We did see from last year, local revenues have come in at 5.6% over budget. That's from a strong earned income tax of $1.2 million over budget, business privilege taxes approximately $400,000 over budget, and interest earnings $2.2 million over budget. So it does show a strong local revenue, which again, as I mentioned earlier, where we're at a point where almost 50% of our student population free and reduced, but yet we have another area of our population that is doing quite well. So that shows, obviously, a lot of the different disparities and issues that we're dealing with here in the Wilson School District. English language learning spending has increased over the last few years. Special education percentage has increased year over year. So just things to keep an eye on as we continue dealing with the budget process over the next couple of months. And as far as other business, we're working through the potential of an online ticket system for all of our extracurriculars. We're working with potential vendors at this point. More to be reported upon that at a later date. We are in the process of obtaining an engagement letter for our business privilege tax auditor. I think who we've used previously may have merged with another business, so we'll have to reissue an engagement letter, potentially finding someone new or ultimately who we have used, but they're under just a different entity name. And I believe that covers our meeting today, and that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Negrini. Actually, I have a question. I don't know if you'd be able to answer it or if it was, we pass it on to administrator. So while 50% of our students qualify for free and reduced, I know that there's paperwork that's involved in applying or letting, like giving notification to the district. Does that mean that 50% of our, 46 right now, right?
43 currently.
43. So 43, does that mean that they are currently utilizing the free and reduced lunch?
So
Do you know that?
my understanding from Ms. Ginn is that there has been some things put in place where individuals, based upon other services that families have qualified for, then allows the district to be made aware of those families that do automatically qualify, and then the district will send out letters to those families indicating that they are qualified for either free or reduced lunches, and so that the students can take advantage of that.
Great, thank you. Just one more roadblock if the students and family aren't able to fill that paperwork out. It's nice to know there's an automatic aspect to it. Thank you, Mr. Negrini.
You're welcome.
On to legislative, Mr. Schneider.
Actually, everything I was going to speak to was covered nicely by the BCIU report, so I have nothing further.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Schneider. Human Resources, Mr. Hart.
No report.
Thank you. Public Relations, Mrs. Troutman.
Good evening. I just wanted to remind everyone that Wilson School District is celebrating our homecoming on Friday, October 13th. That night will kick off with the induction of our 2023 Wilson Athletic Hall of Fame, and that event is happening right here in this room at 5 p.m. This year's class includes Adam Bainbridge, Sarah Deck, Rodney Hill, Caitlin Carr, and Patrick Zerby. Our newest inductees will be honored on the field during halftime, and then we encourage everyone to come to the game as our football team takes on Penn Manor, and then our homecoming court will be recognized during halftime as well as the crowning of our homecoming king and queen. So we certainly welcome all of you there and all of our alumni to come back and celebrate homecoming with us. And I just wanted to remind everyone in our community to be sure to follow all of our social media channels here at Wilson. And you really can get a great glimpse of all the great things that are happening in the district. From student assemblies to classroom projects, creative lessons, to the accomplishments of our band, athletic teams, and the theater company, we've had an amazing first month of school. So if you haven't checked out all of those social media channels, please do so. We love to brag about our amazing students and our staff, and we'd love for you to spread the word by liking and sharing all of our posts. Thanks.
Thank you, Mrs. Troutman. And just a reminder to kind of go along with what Mrs. Troutman said, I asked her previously, so I know that this is accurate. Let's say you're not on social media. I know my father-in-law isn't, just not his thing. And there is something that for the Bulldog Blitz, that he could still sign up and have notifications through email, right? So I just went on our website really quickly. You just type in the search menu on the Wilson School District website, Bulldog Blitz, takes you right to the link, and you can sign up for a weekly email update if you are not on social media. So thank you, Mrs. Troutman. Education Foundation, Mr. Case.
Yes, thank you. So the Education Foundation held their Bulldog Bash at First Energy Stadium on Saturday. It was a great success. There were a lot of you that are here that celebrated with us. It's just a great night going out celebrating Wilson educators, teachers, the folks that are supporters of Wilson, and it was a great turnout. Real nice success for the Education Foundation. The Bulldog Bash is one of two large fundraising events for the Education Foundation, which all the funds, go back to Wilson and supporters of Wilson. So anyway, a couple of things I wanted to, and the year, it was great because we celebrated Teachers of the Year, Jennifer Richards and Alexandra Fishenich, also Friends of the Foundation, the Redners, grocery stores, and their family was there, and friends. And one of the great things that, other than the usual regulars that are at these functions, what I really love is all the supporters of the folks being honored that come in and support the folks that are being nominated and receiving awards. So, great night. One of the things that is still open is the silent auction online. And I have to say, there are some really, really cool things on the silent auction for this year. It's open till Friday, 11 p.m. And I actually am going to read off a list because there's some things that are really, really special and unique about Wilson. One of the things, and I'm going to start off with this, but this is not unique to Wilson. But if you go online, there's a couple of really cool things. There's a Botox party from Clear Dermatology for 4. Bring your friends. Cast your auction for that. There's a private workout with a Super Bowl champ quarterback, Chad Henne. I mean, not many school districts can offer that, but thanks to Chad Henne for offering that up. There's VIP graduation packages. There's custom bulldogs that are made by our students. Wilson pool party, Chef Tim's table. For a group of people, if you want to go out to dinner, you could do the auction for that. Fight and Phil's mascot pool party. There's a Lincoln Van Reed. There's registration, so if you have a child that's part of those organizations, you could probably do an auction, which will be a little bit less expensive than actually registering online. So check that out. Again, all these, thankful to all the sponsors that bring this to the table to, they give these to the Education Foundation for free to auction them off. So there's a Milwaukee toolkit, combo toolkit. There's football, field hockey, basketball, cheerleader player of the night. So if you do the auction on that, your child, or if you're an adult, if you want to do that too, and hang out with the players on the field, you can do that as well. Driving school, prom package, dinner, and a Wilson theater show, which is kind of cool. All access Wilson sports passes, VIP session with Kim Underwood, which, by the way, 1995 Division I NCAA champion, undefeated that year, and she was the captain of the team. You can have a 1-hour session with her and learn field hockey. Again, this is open to adults too. If you want to spend time and learn field hockey with Kim, sure she would be great with that. So anyway, the list continues on. There's a lot of really cool things, so check it out. It's a really cool auction, and they've raised $5,300 so far, and I'm sure that number can go up quite substantially if everyone goes on and takes a look at, there's something for everyone. So go on out, and that's my plug for the Education Foundation. It was a great night, so it's great we have them, and it's nice to be a part of, so thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Case. Actually, was just making a note to myself to make sure to get on that auction before everything's gone. Technology Committee, Mr. McCray.
No report.
Thank you. Student Outreach, Mr. Heilman.
Thank you. Students have had a great September. Starting off with some sports highlights from the past 2 weeks, girls beat Westchester Ruston 1-0, and boys soccer beat Muhlenberg 5-1. Water polo had a successful Beast of the East tournament last weekend, with varsity girls making it to Flight 1 finals and junior varsity girls becoming the Flight 4 champions and going undefeated for the second day. Last week, girls varsity tennis competed in their first day of the Flight tournament, and they all made it through to the next round. Also, girls field hockey beat Daniel Boone 3-0 last week. Kayla Mileto and Kyla Quimby both qualified for the District 3 girls golf tournament, and Kaya Worley was invited to try out for the USA National Softball U15 team. On Friday, Wilson varsity football defeated Governor Mifflin 21-14 and claimed the rivalry trophy. Congratulations for all these outstanding achievements. At the football game last Friday, student government also participated in the Wilson-Mifflin rivalry by hosting a food drive against Mifflin. We collected lots of canned foods, which are all in my car currently, that will be donated to Helping Harvest. The band also celebrated its senior night at last Friday's game and was joined by 8th graders from West and Southern who got to perform with them in the stands. Wilson's Treble Choir announced last week that they have been chosen to perform at the 2024 PMEA State Conference in April in Erie, PA next year. This past Saturday also, Minithon hosted their first car wash of the year at the Berkshire Family Restaurant. The event was a success and lots of fun. Congratulations on all these accomplishments. We have a lot coming up as well. Tonight is the last night to purchase a Pink Out shirt for our upcoming Pink Out and Homecoming game on October 13th. Also, on October 11th, Minithon will be having a fundraising night at Duncan's Corn Maze, where community members can enjoy a night full of lots of fall activities. Also, on October 23rd, student government will be having a school board candidate forum ahead of the upcoming election, where all are encouraged to attend and learn a bit more about the candidates up for election. Lastly, this week, Wilson Theater Company will be performing its first show of the season, Trap. Performances will be this Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at 7 p.m., and this is a perfect way to kick off the spooky month of October. As I've heard, it's a little bit scary. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Heilman. Mr. Maravich, we do have public participation on non-agenda items.
I will read the rules. Pursuant to the Sunshine Law, Robert's Rules and Board Policy, the following are the public rules of participation. Individuals attending the meeting are expected to conduct themselves in a responsible and respectful manner that does not disrupt the meeting. Public comment is not question and answer, but instead an opportunity to offer comments on matters that are or may come before the board. In particular, personnel or student matters may not be commented on by the board members, even if the employee, parent, or student is speaking because of confidentiality laws. As it relates to questions, the superintendent may assign an administrator to speak directly to the speaker or may himself attempt to answer those questions. The board respectfully requests that you direct your comments to the board as a body, as it's the board that will need to consider those comments. Clapping, calling out, cheering, or conversations in the audience are not permitted. Individuals should make their comments from the speaker's lectern and not approach the board tables. Comments are limited to 3 minutes, and I will attempt to give a non-interruptive 1-minute warning. Any person making threats of violence may be removed from the meeting or cited by local police. These expectations are outlined in Board Policy 903, which is on board docs embedded within the Wilson website.
Thank you, Mr. Maravich. First, we have Carol Gardecki, New Elementary School.
Good evening, everybody. Over the last several months, most of the board
and the superintendent were pushing the need for a new elementary school. Some board members, as well as the superintendent, even sounded the alarm bell that the kindergarten class was one of the largest ever. Unfortunately, in review of enrollment report from the last meeting, most of what was said was grossly exaggerated and misleading to the public. The public was told that the kindergarten class coming in this year supported the expansion, as well as how the elementary schools were overcrowded. Let's look at the numbers. The new kindergarten class is 443. Last year's kindergarten class, and now first grade, is only 409. The largest classes are in the 4th and 5th grade. 4th grade, 530, 5th grade, 506. The 5th grade class is moving into the middle school, and the 4th grade class will be in 5th. So why the concern now when the enrollment in the elementary school is predicted to be declining after a new elementary school is built? What is the motive for this misrepresentation? Still don't understand why the taxpayers have to foot the bill for the consultant firm to tell the board that a 3-classroom per grade elementary school can be built on the Lincoln Park property. Everybody on the board, as well as the superintendent, knows that the building can be built. It's not a matter if it can be built. It's a matter of why wasn't it built in the first place 15 years ago? So what are we paying the consultant to do unless, once again, you are misleading the public by trying to shoehorn in a 4-class per grade in Lincoln Park when
1 minute.
approved by the board, if you recall, the estimates shown to the public were for a 3-class per grade school. Further, you have tried to justify the need to reduce class sizes by saying other schools have similar class sizes, but you seem to forget about the reason why many schools have smaller class sizes. You stated in one of your presentations that Wilson is one of only a few school districts still growing in Berks County while the others are decreasing. This is the reason the other districts have smaller class size, because they have lost students due to decrease in enrollment. If we needed a new school, it was 5 years ago when the current 5th grade, 500 pupils, entered kindergarten, and not now when the last 2 classes were in the low 400s. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Andrea Hunter, book bans.
Hi, everyone. My name is Andrea Hunter. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I'm a youth librarian for a local public library. However, tonight I am addressing you as a Wilson parent to share my support for the dedication that our school board, teachers, and librarians have shown in regards to book accessibility for students. October 1st kicked off Banned Books Week. This is a time in which communities come together to fight against those standing in the way of intellectual freedom. At Wilson, we currently have a community member running for school board who has strong ties to a group that utilizes a subjective rating system for books to distinguish whether material is clean and appropriate. This group aims to prohibit the freedom of other parents, as well as teachers and librarians, in choosing books that they feel are of value to students. They are, in my opinion, a hate group and not a resource, as the books that they target for removal are almost exclusively those that contain minority or LGBTQ characters. There is a bullying culture that is prevalent in schools, and that is not going to diminish if we restrict and remove books with diverse characters from the classroom and library. We need to stay the course when it comes to building environments for students in which they have accessibility to diverse characters and spaces in which teachers and librarians are supported in expansive collection development. As community members and parents, we need to work with teachers and librarians, not in spite of them. Wilson has been recognized as one of the top-ranked schools in the state with a 90% reading proficiency level, and we did not get here by limiting the capacity of our students to learn about themselves, one another, and the world around them. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Jennifer Denny, Evolving Curriculum.
Good evening. So my topic tonight is evolving curriculum, but I hope you'll give me a minute to get there. I had the opportunity this past week to fulfill a lifelong dream. My husband and I went to visit the beaches of Normandy, and what made it even better was we did it with our dads, both of whom are in their 80s this year, and both of whom are veterans from the Vietnam era. And this is something that has a lot of significance to our family. Both of my grandfathers fought in the European theater. My grandfather's brother was killed over there and is buried, I think, someplace in France. My husband's aunt is 101 years young, and she was a young bride at Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 1941, and I've had the chance to record her recollections. So World War II is a time period that we have family interest in which I have a lot of personal interest in. I have from the time I was in elementary school, where I would read everything I could get my hands on, which was not a whole lot at Wiltfeld, but there was a lot more at the public libraries. And so when I got to high school, I was pretty excited because I'm like, yay, American history, we're finally going to get into this topic. Only problem was, at that point, history at Wilson was taught chronologically, which meant that not just World War II, but pretty much the entire 20th century got relegated to the last 2 weeks of May. So I think you can all imagine how that went, okay? The most important time period, really in determining how we are today, the 20th century, got 2 whole weeks. I was a little disappointed, and it wasn't until I got to college that I really was able to get into those in-depth classes. So let's flash forward to Wilson 2023. My daughter is in 10th grade, and when she got, or excuse me, 9th grade, and when she got her school curriculum last year and got to pick her classes, I was going over it, and I said to her, oh my goodness, you can do an entire semester on World War II. You can do an entire semester on the Holocaust. I couldn't do that until college. Do you realize that most schools can't do this? Well, she rolled her eyes and said something about me being extra. But the point is that this is the kind of thing that most schools can't do. They don't have the financial resources. They don't have the teachers. They don't have the curriculum to do it. Wilson has it for high school students. Even better, at Parent-Teacher Night, I learned that Wilson has evolved its curriculum. And we no longer teach history chronologically. We teach it topically, which anybody who is a history buff knows that teaching World War II in the context of World War I makes the most sense, and it really explains how it got to where it was. Well, instead of being taught at the end of May, my daughter and your kids, for those of you who are Wilson parents, are going to get American history in 9th grade sometime, I think, in the late fall, early winter, which means it's going to get the emphasis and priority it deserves, so that our children are going to learn about the sacrifices of their grandparents and great-grandparents and how it got our country to where it is today. So I want to recognize Wilson for the outstanding curriculum it has, for the teachers and the administrators for recognizing the need to change curriculum.
Thank you for your comments. Chastity Santiago, Hispanic Pride.
All right. América está hecha de estrellas. Los hispanos somos uno de estas estrellas y juntos brillamos. Somos enfermas, estudiantes, maestras, vecinas y mejores amigas. Cantamos, bailamos y cocinamos y sobre todo trabajamos duro. Pero hay muchos en esta comunidad que saben que estimamos, pero no pueden vernos. Que nos escuchan hablar, pero no les importa escuchar. Este distrito enseña historia afroamericana, pero no historia hispana. Avergonza públicamente a los estudiantes y sus familias. Apoya los esfuerzos para intimidar a los estudiantes. apoya las interrupción de los aprendido por razones políticas. Denunciar nuestros valores culturales. Ataca y silencia a otros. Este es mi llamado a la acción. Un llamado a la inspirar y cambiar. Un grito de guerra para unificar los hispanos. Necesitamos salir de los sombras y tener un impacto visible en nuestra comunidad. Nuestros niños representan el 27% de los estudiantes en este distrito. Hay 5 candidatos que ven a los hispanos como algo más que una casilla en las censos de Estados Unidos. Y sus nombres son Craig Stoneha, Val Delp, Dr. Brian Lockhart, Keegan Orzechowski y Amy Murray. Cada niño es importante para estos candidatos. Y un voto para estos 5 candidatos es un voto para preservar nuestros valores hispanos como el trabajo duro, honesty, la familia y passion por la vida. Juntos podemos mover la percepción de negativo a positivo, de invisible to visible, tomadores to creators. Juntos nuestro voto puede hacernos ver y escuchar. ¿No está registrado para votar o tiene alguna otra pregunta? Email me at rhpfwsb@gmail.com. Seamos los modelos y seguir los giros que nuestros hijos necesitan. Gracias.
Thank you for your comments. Tammy Keener, comments from last meeting.
Hi. Chris, at the end of the last meeting, you said everything that one of the most revered organizations in the world said educators would say in the U.S. You made excuses for the state of our education by trying to justify how happy our students are and well adjusted to socially. You downplay test scores, which every country but educators in the U.S. is a verifiable benchmark. You are ignoring Wilson's gradual erosion on the PSSAs compared to other school districts in this county. 2022 even has Southern on a watch list. You hang your hat on a Newsweek article that willingly admits the information is 4 years old. You and this board once again ignore the facts and push aside the objective form of measurement. You're starting to sound like every government organization, pointing fingers at everybody else but themselves. More economically distressed students, changing demographics, and of course, government regulations. I'm tired of hearing it. The OECD made it clear that these excuses don't measure up with reality. While here at Wilson, we may not have a third of the students in this category, but it's these students that are working hard to get ahead. You care more about warm, fuzzy feelings by letting students retake tests over and over. Don't like your test score, had a long night, don't feel good, take the test over. There are no do-overs in the real world. And what is the benefit of giving special privileges to a student with bad behavior for being good? How is this preparing them for to be a productive world citizen? Heaven forbid students actually get disciplined for disruption. You have to let go of your notion that the education revolves around Wilson. It is not even close to being the best it can be. We might be good in our little enclave in Berks County, but we are producing less productive participants in the changing global environment and economy. Are we preparing Wilson students to compete with our counterparts in foreign countries? I have my doubts. What went wrong in the education system when tests are considered secondary measurements of the student's education? To be competitive in the world, we need a challenging curriculum, and yes, tests to measure the competency of the students. We are becoming a second-tiered country, and it's already noticeable that some of the best minds are not American educated, but they come from overseas. This should not be happening based on how much we spend on education. But yet you continue to raise our taxes with no improvement in the most recent test scores. It seems over the last 5 years, we are spending more and getting less. We need to stop dumbing down education, stick with core competencies, have a challenging curriculum, and yes, test scores for the benchmark.
Thank you for your comments. Jeff Berg, the broken agenda.
During the last school board meeting, a Wilson parent by the name of Stephanie O'Brien spoke about her son's IEP experience here at Wilson and how wonderful it's been for him. At the end, she expressed her support for the incumbent board members and candidates supported by the teachers union and the Wilson teachers in order to stay the course, a course that provided such an amazing experience for her son. During her speech, instead of listening to what she had to say, the responsible parents for Wilson's school board candidates, led by Craig Stonaha and Keegan Orzechowski, openly belittled and mocked Mrs. O'Brien on their little Facebook page as she spoke about her son. A Facebook page, I might add, that Mrs. O'Brien and countless other community members are blocked from seeing. She couldn't even respond to them or defend herself. This is what cowards do. This is what bullies do. As these extreme candidates mocked and belittled Wilson parents and community members behind the safety of their Facebook page, I thought of a couple questions I feel are important to know about potential school board members. For example, if Mr. Stonaha or any of the PAC candidates are elected, are we to expect this type of behavior from them? Could you imagine a concerned parent standing at this podium expressing their concern with the way Mr. Stonaha voted on a particular issue, and while they challenge him, he belittles them on his Facebook page? What if it was a student? Would these candidates go as far as to mock a student for disagreeing with them? Mr. Stonaha will, of course, say he would never do something like that. But can we believe anything he or his slate mates say? Mr. Stonaha has a podcast called The Broken Agenda. Don't take my word for it. Go listen for yourself. It's on YouTube and Google Podcasts. Episode 15 titled Conspiracies. Here's a quote from the episode from Mr. Stonaha himself. I've been making up lies about people for decades. It would be nice to see one formally recognized. Mostly, I just make them up on the spot to embarrass them. He went on to explain what makes a great lie. Again, his words,
1 minute.
Not mine. What else could these candidates be lying about? Maybe their entire agenda. Craig claimed that they are the most transparent candidates in Wilson history. This is a lie. Statistics for something like this do not exist. And they blocked a large portion of the community from seeing their discussions on district matters. That's the opposite of transparency. All 5 candidates have claimed that they're willing to have an open discussion with anyone. Again, a lie. Not once have they offered to have a discussion with myself, Stephanie O'Brien, or countless other community members who have disagreed with them. These candidates constantly talk about Wilson discipline problems. Again, a lie. Every school has discipline problems. Wilson is no different. Comparatively, Wilson is not measurably worse than the other similar districts. Knowing that Mr. Stonaha is an admitted and proven liar, I call on everyone here and everyone listening at home who values truth, honesty, and integrity, join me in demanding that these slate of candidates drop out of the race immediately and let the adults in the room handle the important business of the school board. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Melissa Challenger, Academics.
Good evening. This is my very first school board meeting, and unfortunately, I felt compelled to be here tonight as the parent of a Wilson West middle schooler for several reasons, but the main reason is to congratulate the school board administrators and our teachers for earning the U.S. News and World Report recognition of Wilson High School as the best in Berks and the 50th best in Pennsylvania. This, of course, comes as no surprise to those of us who are parents of Wilson students. My husband and I actually moved our child out of a private school in order to attend Wilson, because when we moved here, so many people told us that our son would get a better education at Wilson than at any other school around. It is that good. As the parent of a child who's now a 2-sport athlete, National Junior Honor Society member, and a high honors student, who has now gone through 2 Wilson buildings and interacted with dozens of educators and administrators over the years, I can attest firsthand that yes, Wilson is that good, and we do have a phenomenal school district. Therefore, I was surprised to learn that another Wilson mom I know had a door hanger placed on her door this past weekend, which I thought had some really bizarre assertions on it, but the one that really caught my attention was one that said that Wilson is rated in the bottom 50% for academics. I followed the link source, which took me to a website I've never seen nor heard from, and it essentially says that it's coming up with that number based on a small selection of data from the 2020 to 2021 school year, which of course was the year of the global pandemic. The door hanger does not mention other bullet points within that same reference report that show Wilson math scores in the top 20% in the state, nor other data that reflects very positively for the district, such as graduation rates, diversity, class sizes, and our elementary schools. The door hanger appears to take a single metric and a single report from one test at the high school, which was taken at the height of the pandemic. One does not have to be a scientist to understand that there can be outliers, and all available data should be taken into account before making such conclusions. It concerns me because this appears to create a skewed narrative of Wilson, which I do not believe is reflective of the true quality of the academics here at Wilson. I don't pretend that Wilson is a perfect school. However, every parent that I know personally loves Wilson. We are proud to be Bulldogs. By and large, we love our schools, we love our educators, and as Wilson parents, we will always defend them when and if necessary. And this is that time. It is my hope that Dr. Trickett and/or other board members would please provide some clarity to the community regarding these two very different data sources. It seems that one of them has to be way off. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Leah Kasani? No? Okay. That's the end of our public participation on non-agenda items. I open the board, open conversation to any other business from the board.
And Dr. Trickett, can you speak to that last comment? Because I think there is a lot of misinformation out there and twisted data, and if it's hanging on people's doors, I think we want the truth out there.
So again, a lot of conversation over the last few meetings regarding student performance on state assessments. Going back to that year in time, we were in a full hybrid modality for all of our students in secondary schools, which meant that they came to in-person instruction 2 out of the 5 days. As that year progressed and we started to get different directives from PD, Pennsylvania Department of Education, we started to see some moving targets. One of those moving targets specifically was graduation requirements that were responsible to ensure that kids graduate from high school. As we know, even going back before that, the only graduation pathway was the Keystone exam, going back 6, 7, 8 years ago. Fast forward today, there are 5 or more pathways that kids can take. Those aren't our pathways, those are state-required pathways. So as we moved into March, I believe, or April of that year, having conversations with our teachers and our principals, realizing that the Keystone exam specifically, which is, I believe, what we're talking about, requires 6 days to implement. We do 2 days for literature, 2 days for biology, and 2 days for algebra. That would equate to 3 weeks in school, in-person weeks. So we made the decision, ultimately me making the recommendation to the board, that while we were going to follow the mandate, we were going to do it a little bit differently. So we did not we did not have consequences in place for families who chose not to have their kids take the assessments during that school year. Ultimately, we had many families who did, who chose to bring their students in and mindful that some kids were also learning virtually, completely virtually. The majority of those students never came in and took the test. Failure to take the test shows up as a below basic. So that particular year, we did have 18% of our students who took the literature exam earn proficiency, either advanced or proficient. And that was the data point that was presented in the newspaper. I believe there was a newspaper article about it where we spoke about that particular year, and we discussed why we made the decisions that we made. Those were conscious decisions made by us at the time. Historically, we do very well in a literature exam, somewhere in the mid to upper 70s to low 80s in proficiency. Our students take that test during their 10th grade school year at the end of 10th grade English. There's a couple trigger courses, which is also an important data point here. The Keystone exam is an end-of-course assessment. That's what it is. Some school districts chose to offer that assessment the next year at the end of a different course. So to make that a more easy to understand perspective, that would be like giving a child instruction in algebra, but not testing them in algebra, giving them the assessment in geometry. We as a district chose not to do that. We didn't think that was in the best interest of kids. So that particular year, absolutely, our scores did not look strong. However, the very next year, in the literature assessment, I just pulled it up here on pafutureready.org, we rebounded in literature from an 18% proficiency to 76.7, far exceeding the state average. And then in mathematics that same year, where the state average was 35%, we were at 78.9. So just 1 year different. I would suggest that our test scores would have been within 5 or 8 percentage points if we would have tested that cohort of kids. So we did make that decision as a leadership team. That came on the heels of not testing anyone and being fully exempted the year before. But I do believe that that's the discrepancy in the test scores, specifically the proficiency percentages that we're looking at.
So there are websites available that will give truthful, accurate examples of our test scores out there.
The FutureReadyPA.org is the site that is governed by the Pennsylvania Department of Education. And that 18% will show on that website. If you go and look at prior years, again, what's really important to understand is that it's so complex. These kids can take the assessment over again. They absolutely can. That's part of the law. We have certain parameters in place there, too. For example, we limit them to 2 times. We don't do 3, 4, 5, or 6 like I mentioned previously. And again, there are multiple pathways. If a child there's a lot of reasons why a student wouldn't take this test. But yet, all of that information is on there, as well as the Safe Schools Report, which has been discussed many different times. The Safe Schools Report is really a reflection of the incidences that we're seeing in the school system. An increase on that report, as reported publicly, means that we're seeing additional incidents. That doesn't mean that there aren't consequences. That is not the report to analyze consequences. That's an internal metric that is between us and the family, not one that's posted on any state portal.
So just to clarify, the information that Wilson is in the bottom 50% is inaccurate. It's wrong. It's a lie.
I can't speak to the statement, but I will tell you that if we look at the data from what's currently posted, we're well above the state average in every metric.
Well, I would call on anyone that's putting inaccurate information on people's doorknobs to fess up and to be honest and show some moral fortitude and make the correction.
Mr. Martin?
I don't even want to get in this conversation. I think we're getting way too far off course. But if you look at the most recent results, okay, Wilson has trending down. Go to the results. I'm asking each person, you've heard of these different websites. I'm not going to get into who's right, who's wrong. But if you go into these websites, you can see over the years, last couple of years, I'm not talking about 2021, I'm talking about, you can see that, especially if you look at the last set of data from 2022. Wilson's still good, but we're showing a gradual decline. But go into the websites. So you want to listen to anybody, go and do your own homework, and you can see, because all the schools are listed. Every school in Berks County is listed in that, as well as, if you know other schools out of the school district, you can go in there, and there's abundance of information, so go do your own homework and make your own decisions.
I totally agree with you, Mr. Martin, that people need to go to the correct websites, though. That's the only thing I would add. Go to accurate websites, not random websites that just mishmash a bunch of ELA data together. I would recommend that you go to the one that is the source, which is the one that Dr. Trickett is speaking about.
And just to add to that, it's FutureReadyPA.org. And like Mr. Martin said, you can access any district in Pennsylvania. You can compare districts and their metrics and see where your child's building falls. And I would like to add something to something that Dr. Trickett said about the fact that students are able to retake the benchmarks for the Keystone exams specifically, obviously not for PSSAs. But that kind of goes along with our secondary policy of retakes. When that was first instituted, I was a teacher in a math classroom, and it sounded like a huge headache to have to give an assessment and then, a week later, give it the exact same assessment to students. And I kind of had the same feeling that this isn't, it's giving them an easy out, like, oh, I didn't do well that day, well, I'll just do it again next week. However, teachers put in place tools and practice worksheets, and they have to come in and meet with the teacher and prove that they're studying the material or revamping, or maybe they needed a little extra help on that topic, and they work with the teacher in order to take the retake. They don't just get a free pass and have to take the retake again, like 2 days later. And so one of my children actually took advantage of this, and their score drastically increased, which tells me that their understanding of the material drastically increased, because I don't agree that your ability to take a test does not reflect your ability to understand the information all the time. So if we can absolutely teach children how to take a test. That's a little different than ensuring that they really understand the information that they were taught and can express back to you that they understand the information, rather than just rote memorization or, there's a ton of different skills you can teach them, for multiple choice questions and narrowing down which one's probably the right answer. That's not what we're teaching them. We're teaching them how to understand the material that they are being taught from our curriculum. So that's just my add-on to that part of the conversation. Any other business from the board? Mr. Case?
While we're expressing details and opinions of test taking, I do want to share that I agree with you where with retakes, it is about, all the things about having a student understand the material. My frustration with retakes is that if you take a retake, you should be penalized of some sort on the grade. So if you have kids that are taking tests for the first time through and get 100, deserve 100. If you do a retake, and then you can talk to your friends, what was on the test, you do all this stuff, you shouldn't be able to get a 100. You can master the material and learn, and that's really the goal, but maybe a 95 or a 90 should be your best grade that you can get. I would like to see that policy here at Wilson, because again, it's about mastering the material, not the 100. There should be some sort of a penalty, but I'm just sharing my take, and it's a board member's opinion.
Well, I guess it kind of depends on your, what a grade really reflects. So if a grade really reflects what you knew on the day of the test, then that student that got the 100 was able to successfully show that they knew all the information. But for some children, the window needs to be, extended a little bit. Maybe it takes them a little longer to get that concept of the Pythagorean theorem than, the student next to them did, but they still show that they're understanding the material. I think when we put too much importance on, like, oh, I got a 90 versus a 95, like the actual score, they're just doing it for the score. Then they're not doing it for the understanding. So I think that's just philosophical differences, but I'm open to conversations about it, because like I said, when it was first instituted, it wasn't across the board positively received. Let's just say that. So I don't know what the general feel is now, but I think depending on how you frame it, what the purpose of the retakes are, I think is really important.
I want to really blow your mind and give a shout out to our conversation about standards-based report cards and how that would change the whole philosophy of grading and grades and working, and those kids that get a 97 and they want 100, and really talk about mastery and deep knowledge of material rather than the kind of dog and pony show that is our testing process right now.
Well, and it's a good point, too, because so when students move from elementary school to middle school, there's this whole new concept of, well, you have to do this for a grade. In elementary school, I mean, they have report cards, and it's mostly, satisfactory. They have scores on their assessments, so you can see if they're understanding the material, but it's not the same. So when they move to middle school, teachers kind of really drill in on, you have to do this, I'm grading you on this, I'm grading you on this. So the students are only doing it because they know they are going to get a grade for it. So would they do something extra if they didn't, if it's not worth points? Maybe not, but if it's more standards-based, it's a good point. Okay, so just really quick, I have one more thing to add. It is Banned Books Week, which one of our community participants also mentioned, and I just wanted to share, I have, Dr. Kennedy and I talked about this ahead of time about banned books, so I thought I would bring in the banned books that I read over the summer. That was my goal. There's more, I read other books, but I had to mix it up a little bit because some of them were pretty heavy, so I put in fun books like beach reads then too. But, so the only one I'm missing out of my list of banned books was Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, which was great. And then my daughter also read, which was fun to kind of go back and forth because it was published in 1970, so some of the references were a little, it's like we had to talk about what they meant. But in general, the theme and the feel of the book is still really relevant for today. So I just wanted to encourage people, since it's Banned Book Week, to find a banned book and read it and figure out why people tried to ban it. So, thank you. Mr. Case?
I hope we never, ever, ever, ever go to anything other than a letter grade or a number for middle school and for the high school. I will be extremely vocal if we ever choose to go another direction. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion before the board? Dr. Kennedy?
I just wanted to give a shout out. I did a lot of Wilson this weekend, and my favorite part of this weekend was actually the JV Mites football game that I saw some of our friends here at. We actually combined our cheerleaders for a bunch of cheers, and so they got to get a preview of what they'll be when they're SWEST. And they're all, a lot of them went to Berkshire Heights. A lot of the girls went to Berkshire Heights together. So it was really neat to, even though it was Van Reed and Lincoln Park, it was really nice to get to see them all together and be like, one day you're going to do this in high school. So it was fun. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other business? Looking for a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Mr. Martin. Meeting adjourned.